Welcome back to another episode of Marketing Pack Leaders, the show where we break down modern product marketers and go to market leaders, how they build revenue engines that actually scale. I'm your host, Josh Porter, founder of Thunderwolf Consulting, where I help AI and growth stage companies clarify their positioning, align their teams, and turn complex products into clear stories that sales teams can win with. Today, we're talking about something that sits underneath almost every buying decision but doesn't get discussed enough in product marketing: behavioral science. Who do customers actually buy? What cognitive biases shape their decisions? And how can product marketers use those insights to build stronger messaging and go to market strategies? To help unpack that, I'm joined today by Shannon Kearns. Shannon spent years in demand gen and product marketing, watching great products lose to worse ones, and decided to do something about it. Now she runs More Than Said, a consultancy that helps B2B and B2C tech companies go to market with a story that actually does something, whether it's a new launch or a pipeline that's gone quiet. She specializes in finding the gap between what company says and what the buyers actually believe. She says her unfair advantage is her demand generation roots, a behavioral science brain, and a storytelling heart. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited for our conversation.
Absolutely, me too. All right, let's start with the big picture. How can product marketers use behavioral science to better understand what actually drives buying decisions?
Yeah, so and just to I think it's funny because product marketers are inherently we're all marketers, but I feel like at least back when I moved into product marketing, things became really tactical and frameworky and value pillars and all of that. And some of the behavioral science that we know as marketers feels like it kind of gets lost sometimes in what we do. And so I'm excited to talk about this today because for me as a product marketer, I'm not an advertiser, I'm a product
Hmm.
marketer. I'm excited to like bring to light some of the ways that behavioral science can come into what we do in our day to day and make us better product marketers. I just think it's a little bit less obvious than like on the advertising side.
Yep.
So when we talk about driving buying decisions, one of the most interesting things that I like to think about whenever I'm putting together messaging and positioning or whenever I'm briefing in a team is not just why someone is going to buy this, but why wouldn't someone buy this? And I
Hmm.
think that's a conversation we don't have enough, especially with our creative partners and our sales team if you're in B2B. So we know that a lot of buyers have irrational struggles, which I think is I'm going to mispronounce his name, Louis Grenier, who wrote
Okay.
Stand the F Out. He wrote that book. So he talks about these like irrational struggles that people have. And we as product marketers are very focused on the value. Here's how your life's going to be better. Here's the value of the product. Here's what the product can do. Here's how it's going to come to life in your day to day. But a lot of times we completely miss the emotional friction that actually stops
Hmm.
someone from doing something. And
Yes.
that can be and a lot of times it's a little irrational. Like, what if this goes wrong? Or what if I look like a dummy? Or what if people judge me for this? Or, I'm just inherently afraid of change.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think the big picture for me is we should start thinking just as much about why people wouldn't purchase something and make sure that we are understanding how that comes to life across the customer journey and making sure that our teams and our creative partners are enabled with that information.
I love that. Yeah, you're totally right. I think in B2Bs particularly, it's very easy to kind of not think about the emotions, but when it comes down to
Yeah.
it, we're still selling to people, we're still selling to it may be a group, it's a group of people, but they're still people. And ultimately somebody or a group of people had some kind of pain, and that pain is emotional in the end. And whether they can't get their job done right or on time or whatever. And so getting into that piece about what's the emotional part is really key. So I like how you brought that up. I think that's often overlooked when you think you're just selling to big glass buildings and these giant corporations.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And making sure that the team understands that as well, and that they kind of understand some of the struggles, the emotional struggles that your buyers have as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, that's really key because it's so easy to get into functions, to features, what your product does, but if you're not speaking to their particular pain and not just their functional pain, what is their functional pain in their job, but also what is the emotion behind that, then it's very dry. But when you bring in that emotion piece, then it starts to resonate.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, the next question is a lot of marketing frameworks assume that buyers are just perfectly rational and we know what you're just saying, says the opposite. It's like it's usually not the case where they're rational. Something irrational is going to happen in the process. As you mentioned, they're probably more likely thinking about why should I not buy this particular piece of this product. So where do you see product marketing teams unintentionally fighting against buyer psychology instead of working with it?
I feel like I love this question, and I feel like you already know what I'm going to say, and probably everyone can know what I'm going to say, but I'll try and add a little bit more context. Like, where we are most guilty in general is treating buyers like they need more information, and that's going to get them past the point of friction. And oftentimes a buyer can't even really identify what that point of friction is. They might
Hmm.
tell you the cost is too high, or they're confused about this feature, but really on the inside, I'm really overwhelmed with all the information that you just gave me, and I'm just not seeing myself in your product. And so I've worked at companies in the past, and I'll just stick to B2B, but we're guilty on it in the B2C side as well. Where, like, if someone is stuck, it's usually because they're feeling overwhelmed, something feels risky, something feels unclear. Again, they don't see themselves in the product. The way to do that is to understand that fear and that tension and speak to that. It's not to add more information. And so, like, I've been at companies where it's like, well, let's send them 5 case studies and let's show them
Right.
our 20 customer testimonials that are really amazing. And
Yep.
fundamentally, this really works against buyer psychology. And I think there are 3 things that I'll call out here. So, number one, the paradox of choice. So, showing people too many features up front. Again, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about just showing too much information up
Mm-hmm.
front. That gets people really overwhelmed, and because they don't know what to choose, they
Mm-hmm.
don't know
Yep.
what's right for them, and then they just stall and they give up. And they'll tell you it's something different, but it's like, no, you just completely stressed them out with your long list of features.
Yep.
The second piece is or the second behavioral science principle is cognitive overload in general. So, using really big technical words in your product, in your demos, things like that, giving them a lot of volume of information within your demo, things that are really bulky. I don't care how smart you are, a person can only absorb so much.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give them a ton of information, like in a demo, for example, it's going to be harder to process, and then
Yep.
they're more likely to stall. And I've seen that happen in past companies as well. And then kind of the outcome of that is what we're battling against is the default effect, where people are more likely to just stay with their existing solution, which could be no
Totally.
solution at all.
Totally.
And so now you're overwhelming the buyer with even more information because maybe you're listening to what they're saying. They're like, "Well, send me a couple of case studies." They don't they don't really want case studies. They just don't know what else to say to you, right?
Yeah.
Um, well, I mean, this not 100% of the time, but like that's
Right.
how we should be thinking as product marketers. We
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't be like believing everything that our prospects say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think with respect to behavioral psychology in the buying cycle is if we're giving them more information, we're asking them to work harder to make a decision.
Mm,
Our job leveraging behavioral sciences is to make the decision easy and seamless. And a lot of times that does not involve giving more information.
mm. Yeah, I like that. So yeah, the paradox of choice, very, very astute to bring that up, because we want to tell them all the options, everything they could, because great, look, this is everything you could possibly do with our product. But
Yeah.
when we're, and again, for, AI companies specifically, it is so easy to talk about all the capabilities that you have you can do this thing, you do that thing, you can do, 20 other things. But when you focus on the few key points, the one top 2 to 3 key pains that they're trying to work on, then that's important. If they want to hear the rest, then great. But
Yeah.
you just want to give them appetite, whet their appetite by giving them the few key things that they worry about. And if they ask questions, then go deeper. Be prepared
Yes.
for that, but don't lead with that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. Is like at one of the companies I've worked with in the past, we really broke out the sales process significantly because we found that it was just too overwhelming the way that we structured it out. So, kind of separating it out into smaller phases and understanding the nuggets of information people need at each step of the way. So, your point is yeah, I think that's spot on. Like, how can we give them just enough information to keep their interest and get them to the next phase without overwhelming them, and then be there ready for more if and when they ask, which hopefully they do. So I love that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And you are coming in as a product marketer to help the sales team when they're talking to customers, or if they're just reading the website. If the customer's reading the website, you need to have an opinion. You need to have some strong point of view. Otherwise, if you're saying, well, we can do everything under the sun, then that means you can do nothing. So you just have to have that strong point of view about what our products can do, what pain and is our product solving, this one particular one. Take that risk, because we
Yeah.
most times we don't want to close off our options, but that is what shows leadership.
So well said. Yeah, it's a constant struggle as a consultant too with my clients. I'm still like pushing back. Can we get more narrow? Can we get more narrow? Can we
Mhm.
say less? Can we focus on more? Because at the end of the day, if you really understand the emotional and functional and social needs of the person that you're trying to sell to and what their life is going to look like with your product, like the more specific you can get on that, obviously the more likely you're going to resonate with them, right? Because it's like you
Yeah.
understand exactly where they are and what they need. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. And like we said, what is their life going to look like with your product? I think that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, yeah. How is
Just
my
don't.
life going to be better,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly. All right. Next question is more about positioning and messaging, where a lot of product marketers spend their time. How
Mhm.
can behavioral insights improve positioning and messaging, especially for complex products?
Yeah, I think I think this is really interesting. I wouldn't say that I've seen it necessarily influence positioning, but definitely messaging. And I do think that it can change messaging pretty fundamentally because again, back to I think the earlier point is like your messaging needs to resolve the buyer's internal tensions as well, and then also understand that better version that they want to become when they have your product. So really understand well who they are today and then how your product helps them become a better version of themselves. A couple of things that I've added into messaging that I've found very successful is I like to add in a hero's journey because I think, especially for creative partners, that helps them really understand like the mindset and the state of a customer coming in. and then sort of the steps that they go through, and then like what's their kind of hero state when they have our product. So in that sense, behavioral psychology and this whole concept also of um, things like social identity, which means I want to buy products from people who are like me, or I want to buy the same products that people like me buy. And if I consider myself a, wellness freak who buys like the absolute best wellness products, if you tell me that the the people who take the best care of their wellness buy this product, I'm going to be more likely to do that because that's who I am as a person. And so from a messaging perspective, I really like to try and layer that on for creative partners, and also try to help internal partners like sales, and mainly sales teams if it's a sales led organization, help them understand like who is this person, what do they want to look like, and how does the product actually help them become that better version of themselves, because everyone is looking to be a better version of themselves, whether it's in a B2B product that I'm bringing on at my company, or if it's a skincare product or whatever.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I have used it to help improve messaging. And then just one step further, I also really like to I like to work very closely with creative partners on advertising testing,
Hmm.
and then also weave in some of those behavioral science principles when we're doing message testing on the advertising side, to validate like hypotheses that we have about the social identity of these people, and helping understand, is that, do people see themselves like this, and does that help us, close more deals? That's probably more on the consumer side, but I think
Hmm.
any place where we can weave in some of the loss aversion is another really good one. If we're thinking
Hmm.
about
Hmm.
advertising or even thinking about sales decks and selling, like, is there a good narrative here around loss aversion, and like the fact that I'm 2x more likely to avoid losing something, to do something where I'll avoid losing versus gaining? Is there a story there that we can play with? So I've actually started incorporating it into like briefs and some of even internal collateral that I'm putting out for sales teams to use for customers.
Got it. Okay. So, two things that I got from that were one, this kind of ability to think about the social proof, which is really key. And that's very much a behavioral science makes that makes a lot of sense that people they want to buy things that their peers are buying, and or people that they want to be like.
Who they
So
see themselves as.
yes, they see,
Yes.
yes, exactly. They may
It's
not exactly
twofold.
be in
It's
that group,
social.
but
Yeah,
yes.
it's social identity, and then separately there's social proof. So you're exactly right. It's both of those. Yeah.
Yeah, social identity, social proof. So that absolutely makes sense. And then the loss aversion too, which I think is really interesting. You being able to create that hint of, oh, I'm missing out on something, or I'm gonna have something not happen because I'm not using this product. Getting that kind of messaging also, I think, definitely helps.
Yeah, it's fun to explore those angles. And I think that's less so in a formal messaging house, and more so when
Hmm.
we're briefing in creative teams,
Hmm.
or when we're thinking about a really good, sales narrative to put together. I think those really come into play.
Yeah, totally, totally. Awesome. Well, now let's make this a little more practical. What small behavioral nudges can product marketers build in their go-to-market strategy to help deals move forward?
I think we talked about some good ones. Again, primarily like cool it on sharing the information and
Mm.
adding the additional sales slide, and sending 3 case studies instead of one. But there are some other really interesting ones that tap more and there are several of these, right, where if I'm working with an advertising partner, I might pull in a lot more of the more tactical principles, which people can go read about those. But
Mhm.
I think there are two. The loss aversion is definitely one, and then I think it's also two additional ones that again, like, let's think about B2B sales. There is this idea. So in neuroscience, and I forget the actual, it's someone's last name, fun something or other. But it's basically like your brain filters out sameness, right? If everything
Mhm.
looks
Yes.
the same, and we know this as marketers, right? If everything looks the same, we're not going to remember it. And so that is such a powerful thing that I think we forget often, because we use the same imagery in sales decks as the competitor. Our website stock
Mhm.
photography looks the same. We're
Mhm.
using very similar language. The ads look the same. So the point is, how can you make something that looks really different and really stands out and kind of like odd and weird, so that someone in a group of in like a page full of content, right, scrolling LinkedIn or whatever, it's really going to stand out. And I think that is really important for us as product marketers to remember, because we should be the people to enable teams to understand how to make something really pop. Like, what is the
Yep.
most important thing? Can we exaggerate it somehow and make it weird? So
Yeah.
that's one piece where, like, anytime I create something, I'm like, how can I like make this super weird, or super different, and just stand out like a red elephant or something like that. I don't know.
Mhm.
That's not even
Mhm.
that weird, with AI and everything. And then I think the other piece is breaking patterns. So maybe again, we go back to thinking about sales decks or just presentations in general. Anything that throws off pattern recognition is going to really surprise us. So if we're showing things to customers, or if, and this kind of goes back to the previous one, but it's slightly different, but like anything that feels a little bit different or unique and that's breaking the pattern, that's going to catch someone's attention and make them stop.
Mhm.
So the first one is going to actually make them remember you, but the pattern recognition is actually going to catch someone's attention, because it's different,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
unique, it's
Mhm.
breaking the pattern, I'm not
Mhm.
expecting it.
Yep.
And so some of the best presentations that I've ever seen actually will change, people will change the image every 30 to 60 seconds, and every
Mm.
30 to 60
Interesting.
seconds you're seeing like funny memes and weird stuff. And I'm talking about presentations with thousands of people in the audience. There's
Mhm.
a reason why they do that, because it keeps people's attention, it catches it,
Yep.
and it
Yep.
keeps it, because it's breaking the pattern,
Yep.
and it's surprising your brain. So I would say behavioral nudges to move deals forward. How can we think about surprising someone's brain in order to
Mhm.
capture and keep their attention? And like, in the age of AI, this is so important. But I also think it's like companies are really excited to have more fun with their marketing and with their sales decks, because they're like, we got to be different. Um,
Right.
and I think that's a really fun opportunity for us as product marketers to also get in there and, yeah, help teams get a little weird.
Oh, totally. Totally. I think this comes down to, and just bear with me for a second. I just saw Project Hail Mary with Ryan Gosling,
Me
and
too.
it's
I literally,
so
me
so good.
too.
Excellent movie. Excellent movie.
I cried. Did you
Yeah,
cry?
it's so good. But it can be very quirky, and it breaks the pattern sometimes. There's a lot to be learned from that particular storytelling as well.
It's
But
a great
as we
example.
but the specific example, I think, to getting to your point, is he wears this shirt because obviously everything's very science based, and the author really tried to make sure that it was based on grounded on real science. But the funny part, one of the funny parts was he was wearing the shirt. What looked like the periodic table of elements, right, with one element, but it said with exclamation point, and then it said the element of surprise. And it was like probably the least funny part of the movie, but I thought it was hilarious. But what you're getting to here is that whole part about surprise, breaking patterns, and even that. I mean, use that as an example. Like I wasn't expecting that to be in this like very scientific based movie, but
And you
very
remembered
interesting.
it.
Yeah, I remembered it exactly. So, and that's
Yeah.
where what I think what you're saying about using something like that, these break patterns to surprise people.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I really love that example, and I love that you remembered his shirt. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Of all the things, it's like there's amazing, fantastical scenes where they're in space and like, that was one of the things that I wanted to call out. So
That's
anyway,
great.
cool. Awesome. Well, this has been super great. Really, really good to kind of hear your expertise on behavioral science and how it interfaces with product marketing. So now we're going to go into a rapid fire round. Are you ready?
I think I'm ready. I do wish that I would have reviewed the questions, but like, bear with me. I will do my best.
You're totally fine. You're totally fine. This is all off the cuff. So there's no wrong answer here. So, all right.
Okay, let's
First
do it.
question. First question. What's your favorite marketing tool?
Ooh, the tool I spend the most time in obviously is Claude, but
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think my favorite marketing tool has to be Slack because it's changed the way we've
Mm,
communicated and made
okay.
communication so efficient and therefore made our jobs infinitely easier. So
Yeah,
that's what came to
totally.
my mind. I don't know.
That's an interesting, no, that definitely can help for sure.
Yeah.
That communication tool. Yeah. Getting AI to
Yeah.
respond or do things for you is one thing, but then communicating with other people is really key. So I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. All right. Next question. What's the most underrated skill in product marketing?
The most underrated skill in product marketing is probably curiosity, which is not
Mm.
something that can be
Hmm.
easily learned, but
Right.
you can spend time with people who are curious and understand how to expand that skill for yourself. But I think more and more it's becoming important to be just super curious as a product marketer.
I love that. So there's two things. One, there's this what Eastern adage: "He who asks a question is a fool for 5 minutes, but he who doesn't ask a question remains a fool forever." So I think that really
Boom.
applies here.
That's
I think,
great. I love
yeah.
that. Yeah, so maybe it's about asking good questions.
Hmm.
That's probably the skill is asking good questions. Perfect. Okay, you got it.
Yeah. And then the second thing is there was a group discussion time with an executive who had been at a leader at many major corporations and went to Ivy League for business school. And he said that he attributed the key to his success was what you're saying, curiosity, just being open and trying to learn a business, a product, the people, the customers, just having that curiosity helped him propel his career. So I think
Yeah.
that's right on.
Good. Good. I love it.
All right. Next question is, what's the biggest mistake to avoid in product marketing?
Ooh. Let's see. I would say making assumptions, but more like not assumptions are fine, but not checking pressure testing assumptions with cross-functional partners. So like,
Mm-hmm.
don't assume that product is okay with X, Y, and Z decision. Don't assume that this marketing channel can roll this out by X date and that creative
Right.
team can turn
Right.
something around in 2 days. Like,
Hmm.
assumptions are fine, but you've got to just make sure that you're checking in with people. And like, I've learned that the hard way because we're trying to move fast all the time. And we're trying to make decisions as product marketers as we should.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think always check on those assumptions because it's a good way to piss a lot of people off if you don't.
Totally,
You want to do
totally. I like
that.
that. Yes, yes. Very, very manage expectations and you'll
Yes.
be better off. So yeah, totally, totally agree with that. What's one thing you wish you knew when you started your
Um,
career?
oh, when I started my career, I wish I had invested more in understanding uh, understanding strategy and
Hmm.
how strategic discussions progress and how strategic decisions are made. I think it's something that I had to learn along the way, and I think it's really important as product marketers to just have a firm grasp in strategy. That also might be skewed because I'm like really deep in strategy stuff in my
Hmm.
business. So I don't know. If you would have asked me half a year ago, I might have a different answer.
Hey, it's all about the zeitgeist, what's happening right now. So that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And last question, favorite podcast.
This one.
Stop it. Stop it.
No, I had to. I do like your podcast though. I genuinely like this podcast. I think it's fun. My favorite podcast is I actually really like Diary of a CEO, but
Hmm.
for like all of my relationship people out there, there's this guy called Matthew Boggs
Okay.
who does relationship advice and
Interesting.
really kind of specifically for people who identify as women. And I just think he's fantastic. And he's taught me so much about how to be a better partner and so forth. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's a great one. That's really good to hear. I'm sure people will identify with that. So that's great.
Good.
All right. All right, Shannon. Well, this was fantastic. Behavioral science really gives product marketers a deeper lens into how buyers actually think and decide. So I really appreciate how you connected those insights back to real customer language and messaging.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Josh. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, if you want your positioning and messaging to resonate more deeply with customers, this is the kind of thinking that makes a difference. Thanks for tuning in to Marketing Pack Leaders. I'm Josh Porter. See you next time.